In the middle of the night, I woke up because the pain couldn't allow me to sleep. My neck was sore, my spine was rioting, my joints, I was a mess. I was a mess. I woke up, I was crying, and because I was new on the job, I was like, how, like this cannot be happening to me. So that night I was overwhelmed. I was like, no, this cannot be happening to me. And in all of that, I just began to hit my body uncontrollably. I began to hit my head. And the thing is, many times we think that when things like this happen, people have lost control of their senses. I remember so vividly. And somehow, I think I blacked out or I slept off. Hello, my name is Helena Okiring, and I'm 34 years old. I'm a social worker, a leadership resource person, and I am passionate about helping youth and women to discover their potential for transformative leadership. I am also a feminist and a researcher, and I am interested in creating media tools and platforms that can help people improve their leadership acumen, but also transform their lives. I am elated to be on the show, and I hope by sharing my story, you will be inspired. This is my mindful story. In January 2020, I applied for a job at a women's organization, a women's rights NGO that does work to end violence against women and children. A lover of all things women and children myself, you can imagine how excited I was to take up the job. The interview process was lengthy. I think it was 3 or 4 steps. But I endured through all of it. And in April, I began to work. But as you remember, April was also when the COVID lockdown officially kicked in, at least in Uganda. So we had to work at home. So I was taking on a new job in an entirely new context. But I was determined. My work consisted of different things, we were planning programs on self-care for women across the continent. And as you know, the tension and the stress that the COVID-19 pandemic created meant so many people were going through different things in their homes. My work, a typical work day consisted of Zoom calls, writing concepts, writing out things. There was a lot of writing, but there was a lot of Skype calling because we were now learning to work from home. By the end of the month, I was starting to feel, I don't know how I'm doing here. My body I had an anemia scare. By the end of the first month, I was feeling a bit sickly. I thought, it's probably malaria. So I actually self-medicated. I took malaria tabs because I know, that feeling. But the symptoms persisted. When that happened, my mom said, you know what, go and see a doctor. When I went to see a doctor, they were concerned and said, I had an anemia scare. So they just told me, up your vitamin and iron gain. So I said, cool. So I took the doctor's advice and went back into things full swing. One of the things I remember around that time was there was a lot of pressure happening. You guys remember during that whole COVID season, there were job cuts like crazy. People were were losing jobs. People were getting out of work. They were getting half pay. So the pressure to keep my job was high. But importantly, I was also thankful because the organization that employed me said nobody was going to lose their job thanks to the COVID pandemic. So I'm not one to take opportunities like that for granted. I was determined to make it work, knowing how lucky I was to still have my job. So guys, I got my grind on. Like I worked. I did not want to be late on any deadline, but I was also doing Zoom calls, and because we had colleagues in the US, that meant, we would have emails coming in sometimes at 1 a.m., and at first I thought, well, you can respond to this in the morning. Shock on me. I would wake up and find like a thread, like people have responded to emails that kept coming in at 1 a.m. So I told myself, Helena, you need to up your game here. And after a while, that was it. It was Skype calls, Zoom calls, working on things, and, emails, working across time zones and stuff like that. After a while, my body began to hurt. My body began to hurt so much. I remember my spine, my neck. I would tell my brother is a fitness junkie, and I would tell him, my joints are hurting. It's like, it's because you don't exercise. But this is the thing. By the end of the workday, I'd be too tired to exercise. Like, exercise was the last thing on my mind. So I began to take painkillers to be able to work. I would wake up. It started with, I think I would first take diclofenac. Then I went to diclofenac gel. Then, I think I started using muscle relaxant because my body hurt so much, you guys. The pain was so excruciating. But I had a job to keep. I was determined. So I would take the painkillers, and that would push me through the day. Also, because, I was, going non-stop, I would use like Zoom calls. You know how when a Zoom call starts and after everyone's face has been seen, mics off, I would rather videos off. I would use that chance to quickly eat breakfast, like snack on something before they tell us to have our videos on. I wasn't eating as well as I should. So it continued. Before I knew it, my body was literally on fire. I felt so much pain, but I also found myself constantly sad. Like I was always on the verge of tears. Whenever I would think of a Zoom call, I would just be like, not another one. I was getting, remote working fatigue. I was fed up. And also because of where we are, this part of the globe, the network is not that good, the internet connectivity. So after every call, I would have these headaches from struggling to hear. Long story short, that continued. I also noticed that in my workplace, there was an interesting culture. We worked with, one of our people we worked with is an American, So I don't know whether it was organization culture, but I noticed there was no dissent. Like whatever she said went. And I noticed, you would try and suggest things here and there, like you would look like crazy because everybody would be quiet. And this time we were chatting, mostly doing our work on WhatsApp groups. So you would suggest something, I'm that person because I have a creative streak in me, so ideas come like that. So I would suggest different ways we would do things, and I would notice, at first I let it slide, I would notice there would be silence. But then when someone else posts, the director to be exact, everybody would be throwing emojis and things like that. So I started thinking, is the problem with me? Like, why does that happen? But I let it slide, but I noticed. And it continued, it was things like that. There was no dissent. It was that kind of culture. Whew. And then on the night, I remember of 22nd May, the day 22nd May, I woke up. I wasn't myself, but there was also a lot happening at work. I was starting to feel like I'm not welcome here, or there's something I'm missing. So I wasn't myself. I wasn't in a good place. I remember the Zoom call I took that day, having to do a check-in on the call with the rest of my colleagues, and they asked, how are you? How are things going? And I remember I couldn't even speak because I was struggling to hold back tears. And you know how you feel like you're not yourself, you're struggling to hold back tears, but you are in a new organization, you don't know, maybe it's just you. So on that last call, I struggled to hold back tears because I felt like the people I was speaking to and the people I worked with were two different people. So I was thinking maybe it's just me. I was feeling isolated. I was feeling like, you're being a Miss Smarty Pants or something like that. That day went, and the moment that call was done, I went to my room because I was so tired. I was in pain. I just slept off. I was crying. I remember I just kept crying uncontrollably. I was just sad. I was sad, but I had to be strong because I needed to keep my job. So I remember that evening, my sister Winnie came to wake me up for supper, for dinner, and I couldn't care. My appetite by this time was gone. Like I did not want to eat. So I just went back to sleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up because the pain couldn't allow me to sleep. My neck was sore, my spine was rioting, my joints, I was a mess. I was a mess. I woke up, I was crying, and in all of that, someone in the office had accused me, I think, of misusing office data. And because I was new on the job, I was like, how? Like this cannot be happening to me. So that night I was overwhelmed. I was like, no, this cannot be happening to me. So that night I got up, I remember I was crying, and in all of that, I just began to hit my body uncontrollably. I began to hit my head. And the thing is, many times we think that when things like this happen, people have lost control of their senses. I remember so vividly. I began to hit my head uncontrollably. I was not myself. I was crying. I remember saying things. I remember saying, I was fighting like there were voices in my mind. I am not a thief. I've done many things in my life, but what have I done to these people? Why am I being treated like this? So all of that was happening. And somehow, I think I blacked out or I slept off. In the morning, I woke up and I was on my sister's bed. I wasn't on my bed. I was on my sister's bed because I share a room with my sister. Hi, Cindy. I share a room with her. So I was on her bed. Fortunately, she wasn't in the room. She had gone to stay with another friend of ours who was due to give birth around that time. So I was alone in the room. In the morning, my brother comes, and checks on me and says, Helena, did you have a Zoom call in the night? I heard you speaking. Are you okay? You don't seem fine. I hadn't even realized that he was able to hear everything. I didn't realize I was speaking that loud. At that point, my brother said, you know what? I think where things have reached, you do not look yourself. You don't look okay. We need to get help. I know you love your job. I know it's a gift, but you need to get help. So my family decided that it was time to go and see a doctor, a psychiatric doctor. Yeah. Whew. That messed with me because I had never imagined I would go to a psychiatric hospital. My cousin, I have a cousin who's a counselor. Before I went to see the doctor, I called her, walked her through what had happened, and she also said, you know what, with symptoms like that, I think go and do what we call a psychiatric assessment. That's the surest way we can understand what's happening. So I organized myself. First of all, it was scary. My mom was not around, so we're going to do this with my friends. And yeah, we had to go to see a psychiatrist. We went to Butabika Referral Hospital in Luzira. And before I went, I notified the office of everything that had happened and got official sick leave. I got permission and went to get sick leave. The office offered insurance cover, but because I felt like I was not sure what I was dealing with at this point, from being accused to using office data, I said, no, I want my privacy respected. So I said I'd cover the cost of healthcare myself. So I went to Butabika with my friends. And that experience will be for another day because it was very, very eye-opening. But when we went to see the doctor, I was diagnosed with an adjustment disorder. Basically, my body was just struggling to adjust. Having to take on a new job during lockdown situations was just too much for my body to handle. But also, I was diagnosed with myalgia. So all that pain that I was feeling, all that pain in my spine, my neck, was really my body or my muscles absorbing stress. I did not know, you guys, that muscles actually have memory. Like, they can remember. So what they were doing was absorbing whatever stress I was dealing with and keeping it. So that pain I kept getting was like trauma in my body. I saw a psychiatrist. It wasn't as bad, you guys, as I had thought it would be. Of course, there were things about the hospital that I was like, okay, but it wasn't as bad. I was diagnosed also with another condition, because what happened during that time was, with all this stress and tension, I skipped, like, my period for that month didn't come. So I was also like, what's happening here? I went to see my gyne and they did tests and everything, and I was also diagnosed with a condition called oligomenorrhea. Let me say that again. Oligomenorrhea. Yeah. The stress of everything had also affected my reproductive health, and there was that whole thing going on. I was recommended, I got treatment from the psychiatrist, but I also had to see a psychotherapist. And then to treat the pain in my body, I was put on physiotherapy, so I had to see an orthopedic surgeon. And I also had to keep checking in with my gynecologists. So one problem, 4 specialists. At that point, I was like, what was I thinking? Saying I would cover the costs, because you guys, it was expensive. It was bloody expensive. So whatever I earned, like my salary, my meager earnings went into all that. Like, yeah, I used everything I had to pay for health care. And I did therapy. I saw a psychotherapist. I checked in with my doctors regularly. And at this point, I just want to say, I cannot believe the difference that psychotherapy, for example, made for me. Talking through things, seeing things from a different perspective. In no time, my strength started to return. I had friends around me who were super supportive. In no time, my skies began to blue again. And I felt ready to go back to work. So I made the call to say, to my country director, I've been on therapy. I feel good to go. Can I come back to work? How does that go around here? And she said, oh, that's fantastic to know. I'm happy to hear you are bouncing back. And in keeping with office policy, just send us your medical documents. Send them all to us, and you should be good to go. So I asked all my doctors to send me medical documents, which they did, and your girl sent them through. So I'm waiting to be told, you're in the clear, you can now come back to start work. This was on Friday, so there was a whole weekend. I sent my documents through that whole week. The last one sent on Friday. There was a whole weekend, and a Monday, Tuesday, I go to see a friend of mine, and then I come back, and there's a letter for me. So I'm like, okay, I wasn't expecting anything. I could see the letter was from the organization, so like, what could it be? So my sister asked me, for some reason I just told her, do you want to read this for me? So she opened it. I will not cry. She opened the letter and she read it. And then she told me, she cleared her throat, that girl Cindy. And then she told me, I think you need to read this for yourself. I read the letter and essentially had been fired. I was fired. And the reason was my sick leave, or my taking sick leave, affected the organization's ability to meet its program requirements. Yeah, fired. In that moment, I felt shock. It was too much, because my sister was, I think she was conflicted. She felt the need to be strong for me, but she was also angry. Like, what the hell? These guys have just fired you for being sick. Like, you felt sick. So, like, and then all the questions. Shortly, my mom came back. All of us were just completely flabbergasted. I used that word. I did not see it coming. Why? This is a women's rights organization, feminist, Yes, I'm a feminist as well. So I did not expect that. In any case, we had been doing work to promote self-care, helping other women cope with COVID. So I was sure. And then I'd got permission to take sick leave. So you people, it was crazy. The first thing that came into my mind was, what are these guys trying to do to me? Do they want me to relapse? What have I done? I've just found myself again. I was angry. That night, I got that letter. I looked at it, I held it, and I wept. My tears burned that paper. I was so confused, I was so angry, and I didn't have answers. That was the thing, because the letter was dropped by a total stranger. There was no conversation with HR. No one told me anything. Nothing, you guys. The last conversation was with the ED country director to say, come back, send your medical documents. Then I am fired. What? Why? How? Was it because I had a mental illness? What? The questions, and no one could answer. So we were all angry. I think my sister also cried. We cried. My brothers in the house were just like, women's rights, you guys are not serious. This is crazy. But at that point, after I cried, because the first instinct was to slip into self-pity and sadness again. But remember, I'd just come out of a dark place. I'd just come out of a dark episode. I was tempted to ask, why is this happening to me? Why me? Why me, Lord? Why me? Why me? And you can put it on replay. But I also knew I needed to master whatever strength I had. to go through this. And even in that moment, I could feel whatever energy, whatever healing I had, gotten up to that point, just slip through my body, like it was leaking. It was just leaking out of me. And you guys, all the women in me were tired, like again. Today, I'm in a much better place. My mind is in a good place. I am healed. I am stronger. I still do my physiotherapy. I still check in with my psychotherapist. And all of this is part of now learning to live a mentally healthy lifestyle. Some days are better than others, I still have days where I get pain flares, like my body just hurts. But that's because, my body stored that trauma. I'm determined not to let it hinder me. So I've learned how to manage it, I now sleep on an orthopedic mattress. I know when my body is stressed out. I know I do exercises. I've learned to respect the limits of my body. The other thing that really made a difference for me during all of this was having a strong supportive network. My family kept encouraging me to go, to hospital. The other support network I am grateful for are my friends. My friends looked after me. They were my caretakers. I had 3 friends looking after me. And looking after me means helping me with everything, bathroom, everything, you guys, because with the pain in my body, I couldn't do anything. Going to hospital, my friends went with me. The hospital has concrete slabs. So because my body was painful, I couldn't sit on those. So my friend sat and I had to sit on my friend. At 34 years, you guys, that's what friends do. So yeah, Susan sat and in hospital, I sat on her while I waited for my turn to come. So my friends like really were there for me. And importantly, my mentor. I have very many mentors, but one mentor in particular has really walked this journey with me, Richard Mujisha. Richard told me something in all of this, from everything that was happening at work, because some days would be so bad, we would just talk and I would be crying, I would be so angry, and he would tell me, Helena, in all of this, do not let any of this chip away at your self-confidence. That's your superpower. You need to stay strong. Whatever it is that's happening, people cannot define you. You are still strong. You are still powerful. You have whatever it takes to endure. Even when I went through the mental health breakdown, he stood by me. He kept encouraging me to bounce back, to find myself again, find my voice again. And it helps when you have someone cheering you in your corner, because that tells you there's still another chapter in your life to be written. You still have things to do. I am a strong believer, very strong believer in finding purpose out of pain. I believe in transforming pain into power. All of this that happened, as dark as it may seem, happened for a reason. And yes, it was dark. Yes, it was traumatizing, annoying, painful, disheartening, discouraging. I have made peace with the fact that it was a blessing in disguise. Does that mean what happened was okay? Absolutely not. But for me, as a person, to be able to move on, to be able to build the next chapter of my life, to be able to transform this into an experience that can strengthen myself and all the people I work with, my friends, young people I work with, women, I had to turn this crisis into an opportunity. If you are watching this and you are a survivor of mental illness, of trauma, of workplace abuse, of any kind of abuse, I want you to know that you survived for a reason. Through all the struggle and pain, you matter. You matter. You matter. Your story matters. Your wellness matters. Your mind matters. Your experience and your pain matter. And your healing matters too. Your mind is still a repository of treasure. It is both your history, it stores your history, but it also stores your possibility. Your story is still unwritten, and when it is done, it will be incredible. But you have to make the choice to carry on. Now, carrying on looks like different things for different people. For me, carrying on was getting therapy, but it was also starting the Mindful Show. In this space, I find strength, I find encouragement, I find hope. I find reason to be strong, reason to heal, because through the Mindful experience, the Mindful Show, I am using my story and the story of many other people to build collective strength, to build power, to encourage healing, and to promote mental health awareness. If you know someone who struggles with mental health illness, please do not give up on them. I am here because my friends, my family, my mentors did not give up on me. They encouraged me to fight on. Inside every person struggling with mental illness is a survivor. And inside every person helping someone struggling with mental illness is a champion. So you can be a champion and you can be a survivor, or you can be both. I am both. I'm a survivor and I'm now becoming a champion. All of that in a nutshell, a very, very, very big nutshell, is how Mindful was born. And from a very dark place of abuse comes what I hope will be a platform that will change lives for so many. If this story helps one person, just one, I will be content to know that it did. My name is Helena, and that is my Mindful Survivor story.